Winter of 1285. Along the frozen passes of the Carpathians, a Mongol army advances toward Hungary. These are the same warriors who 44 years earlier turned this kingdom to ashes. The same horsemen who razed cities, massacred villages, and left 1 in every 5 people dead. The empire that conquered from the Pacific Ocean to the gates of Vienna is back, and the Mongols believe that victory once again is inevitable. But something has changed. The Hungary waiting for them in 1285 isn't the same country destroyed in 1241. In the 4 decades since that devastation, King Bela IV and his successor Ladislaus IV orchestrated something the Mongols couldn't see coming. It wasn't a new army. It wasn't a new weapon. It was stone. About 100 stone fortresses, methodically built on every hill, every mountain pass, every strategic point in the kingdom. When Khan Nogai orders the attack, expecting to crush Hungary like he did in 1241, he finds himself fighting a completely different enemy. This is the story of how Hungary turned its worst nightmare into an impossible victory. And here's the thing. It's not the story you think you know. The secret isn't in the armies. It isn't in the tactics. It isn't even in the numbers. It's in the walls, in the fortresses, in the stone. But before we understand how Hungary won in 1285, we need to relive the nightmare that made that victory so urgent. We need to go back to 1241, when Hungary faced the Mongols for the first time. And it was destroyed. April 11th, 1241. The Sajo River, in eastern Hungary. King Bela IV positions his army on an open plain, about 70,000 Hungarian soldiers against roughly 20,000 Mongol horsemen. On paper, the numbers favor Hungary. In reality, Bela is about to witness one of the most brutal massacres in medieval European history. The Battle of Mohi lasts only 2 days, but those 2 days define decades of horror for Hungary. The Mongols deploy a tactic they've perfected in dozens of campaigns: the feigned retreat. They pull Hungarian forces out of position, shatter the lines, and close the trap. The Hungarian army, weighed down in heavy armor, can't react fast enough to Mongol speed. Mongol horse archers rip through formations before the Hungarians can even close in. When the ambush closes, the slaughter begins. About 65,000 Hungarian soldiers die at Mohi. 65,000. Bela IV barely gets away, fleeing west as his army is slaughtered. And that's just the start. With the royal army gone, nothing stands between the Mongols and Hungary's towns and villages. They sweep through the kingdom like a storm. They're not after territory, they're after terror. Villages burn, populations are massacred or enslaved. The Mongols built their reputation on cruelty, and in Hungary they prove it with brutal efficiency. Historians estimate that 15 to 25% of Hungary's population dies during 1241-1242. 1 in 5. In the east it's even worse. Fortified towns fall in days. Wooden castles burn to ash. Hungary, one of Central Europe's richest kingdoms, is reduced to smoking rubble. And here's the critical detail. Hungarian fortifications are useless against the Mongols. Most castles are wooden, designed for administrative control, not serious defense. Against Mongol siege machines and flaming arrows, they're nothing. The Mongols bypass them or burn them in hours. Bela IV, hiding in western Hungary, watches his kingdom fall. Then, in 1242, the unthinkable happens. The Mongols stop, they pull out. Not because they lost, but because the great Khan Ogadai dies in Mongolia, and the Mongol commanders have to go home to elect his successor. Hungary gets a breather. But Bela knows better. The Mongols will be back. And when they return, Hungary will be destroyed again, unless something changes. So, what makes the Mongols so devastating? And here's the secret no one tells you. It wasn't just speed. It wasn't just brutality. It was something more fundamental. Something Europeans simply didn't understand. To grasp how Hungary won in 1285, we first have to understand the Mongol war machine. And I promise, it's not what you imagine. The Mongol advantage starts with mobility. A single Mongol horseman could cover about 130 kilometers a day. 130. A typical European army, dragging heavy armor and supplies, could barely do 40. Think about that. While the Hungarians march all day, the Mongols cover 3 times the distance. That speed means they fight on their terms. They strike when they're winning, retreat when they're not, and vanish before the enemy can respond. It's like fighting ghosts, but speed alone doesn't win battles. The Mongols combine it with sophisticated combat tactics. The feigned retreat at Mohi is just one of dozens of maneuvers they've mastered. They hit armies with fast pincers from both sides. They pull pursuers into prepared ambushes. They use mounted archers to soften enemy formations from distance, preventing close combat until opponents are scattered and broken. And then there's siege warfare. Here's the misconception. Many think the Mongols were just fast cavalry, unable to take fortified cities. Wrong. The Mongols are siege masters. They took siege engines from cultures they conquered, especially China. Catapults, battering rams, siege towers. They brought Chinese and Persian engineers along specifically to break down walls. During 1241, the Mongols captured several fortified Hungarian towns. Buda fell. Esztergom fell. These were real towns with walls. But Hungarian defenders weren't ready for Mongol siege tactics. The Mongols had conquered cities across Asia. Hungarian strongholds were just another obstacle. Then there's psychological warfare, where the Mongols were masters. They knew terror is a weapon. Here's their strategy. They slaughter a town, then leave some survivors on purpose. Why? So they'll flee and tell stories, horror stories. When the next town hears what happened, they surrender without a fight. In 1241, entire Hungarian towns open their gates because they know what's coming. Terror wins battles before the Mongols even arrive. And here's Bela IV's problem in 1242. Nothing that works in Europe works against the Mongols. Open battles, massacred. Wooden castles, burned. Town walls, taken. The Mongol war machine looks unstoppable because in 1241 Europe, it is. But there is a weakness. Bela IV sees it in the ruins of his kingdom. It's hidden in the Mongols' greatest strength, time. The Mongols are fast, devastatingly fast. But that speed means constant movement. They never stop. Sieges, though. Sieges take time. Siege engines need to be built, positioned, operated. Walls need to be pounded, breaches opened, defenders worn down. Even the Mongols take weeks, or months. And here's what Bela sees. The Mongols work on tight timelines. They don't occupy territory. They destroy it and keep moving. Mongol campaigns are hit and run. What if Hungary could stop them? What if speed becomes a liability? Bela asks a critical question. What if Hungarian fortresses could hold long enough for the Mongols to give up? What if instead of weak wooden castles, Hungary built a network of strong stone fortresses? The Mongols could win in the open. But they can't control territory without taking the fortresses, and they can't devastate the kingdom if they don't control it. That realization becomes the foundation of Hungary's comeback. Hungary can't beat the Mongols in open battles, but it can make Hungary too expensive to conquer. The answer isn't more soldiers. It's stone. What follows is one of medieval history's most ambitious building campaigns. In 1242, while Hungary buries its dead, King Bela IV does something radical. He decrees that nobles, bishops, and towns can build stone castles. Think about that. Before 1241, only the crown could build fortifications. Why? Bela feared fortified nobles would challenge royal power. A noble with a stone castle is independent. But after 1241, that fear doesn't matter. The Mongol threat is existential. Bela needs to decentralize military power to save the kingdom. It's a radical bet, and it works. The nobles respond. Over the next decades, about 100 stone fortresses go up across Hungary. 100. This isn't slow construction. It's a defensive revolution. Castles rise on hills, along rivers, in mountain passes. Each fortress has one purpose: survive sieges. Building 100 stone castles isn't just political will. It's a massive logistical and financial effort. Stone quarried, hauled, shaped. Workers, masons, architects, engineers, recruited. Supplies maintained for years, sometimes decades. Hungary, still recovering from 1241, pours enormous resources into this. Bela knows speed matters. The Mongols could return any time. He prioritizes the vulnerable east and north, where they hit in 1241. Fortresses like Spish, Saraspatak, and Dioskur are built or reinforced. These aren't isolated towers. They're complete defensive systems, with multiple walls, towers, and supplies for long sieges. Here's the genius. Bela doesn't just build castles. He builds a system. Each fortress covers likely invasion points, supply routes, cities. Fortresses spaced, so if one falls, neighbors can help or hit invaders. It's defense in depth. The Mongols can't take one or two and call it one. They have to besiege dozens. Years pass. Bela dies in 1270, but his successor Ladislaus IV continues the program. By 1285, when the Mongols return, they find a transformed kingdom. Hungary looks fragile from outside. But underneath, stone armor. But fortifications are only half the strategy. The other half is design. And this is where it gets interesting. Hungarian engineers don't just build bigger castles. They study the Mongols, study their tactics, and they create fortresses designed to counter each Mongol advantage. Every tower, every wall, every gate, everything answers a specific tactic. Start with the walls. Hungarian fortresses built after 1241 have stone walls about 10-13 feet thick. The wooden palisades of 1241 burned in hours. Stone doesn't burn, and battering rams can't tear it down easily. Mongol siege engines have to hammer these walls over and over to make breaches. That takes time. Then the towers. Hungarian fortresses use round or polygonal towers that maximize archer coverage. Archers and crossbowmen hit attackers from multiple angles, creating kill zones around the walls. The Mongols, built for speed and mobility, find approaching these fortresses is deadly. Even their mounted archers, devastating in the open, struggle against defenders behind stone. Then there's water. Successful sieges often force surrender through thirst. Hungarian engineers plan for this. Many fortresses are built near springs, deep wells, or have internal cisterns storing water for months. The Mongols can't wait out thirst. And supplies. Hungarian fortresses store enough food, weapons, and equipment for long sieges. Granaries, armories, workshops all inside the walls. Even if the Mongols isolate a fortress, defenders can hold weeks or months until the attackers give up or relief comes. But perhaps the smartest element is height and terrain. Many fortresses sit on hills or cliffs. That's a natural advantage. Siege machines are hard to move uphill, and defenders on high ground see further and hit harder. The Mongols, built for open steppes and plains, find mountain sieges frustrating and expensive. Each feature helps. Combined, they create a system that cancels out Mongol advantages. Mobility? Useless when you're stuck besieging a fortress. Mounted archers? Useless against stone walls. Psychological warfare. Doesn't work when defenders know they can win. And so, 44 years after Mohi, the theory gets tested. In winter 1285, the fortress network faces its moment. The Mongols return, and this time, they find Hungary isn't easy prey anymore. Khan Nogai is confident. Why wouldn't he be? He's experienced. The Mongols remember crushing Hungary in 1241. They destroyed it in weeks. From their perspective, this time should be easy. They cross the Carpathians expecting defenseless villages and wooden castles. Instead, stone. This is where Nogai's nightmare starts. The first fortress Nogai tries to take is on the eastern frontier. We don't know which one, but sources describe the Mongol response with one word: frustration. The Mongols surround it. They position siege engines, the ones that destroyed Asian cities. The bombardment starts. Huge stones pound the walls, and the walls hold. Days become weeks. The fortress stands. And now, Nogai faces Bela's trap. He can't leave fortresses behind. They'll cut his supply lines. But if he sieges every fortress, he loses speed, the core of Mongol power. It's the perfect trap. Nogai just fell in. Nogai splits his forces. Part stays to besiege the fortress. The rest pushes deeper, but they hit another fortress, then another. The fortress network forces the Mongols to fragment even more, sieging multiple points at once. And meanwhile, winter gets worse. Mongol campaigns avoid harsh winters, but Hungarian resistance delays everything. Supplies run low. Mongol forces, spread across multiple sieges, face logistical collapse. Then comes the Battle of Pest. Pest, part of modern Budapest, fell easily to the Mongols in 1241. In 1285, it's fortified. Nogai attacks, expecting another quick victory. But now defenders are behind stone walls. Mongol assaults fail. Hungarian archers on the towers shred formations. Siege engines pound the walls but can't open real breaches. Fighting becomes a week, then two. Mongol losses mount. And here's the reality: sieges are expensive. Even for experienced Mongols, losing hundreds to take one city is unsustainable, especially with dozens more fortresses still standing. Nogai chooses: continue the siege and lose more men and time, or pull back. For the first time in decades, a Mongol commander withdraws. Not defeated in open battle, but the cost is too high. And that's Hungary's victory. Not cavalry charges and duels, it's attrition. Every fortress that holds, every siege day, every Mongol lost on stone walls makes the campaign less worth it. Eventually, the Mongols realize conquering Hungary costs more than they're willing to spend. The Mongol forces pull out. They raid the edges, but the invasion fails. Hungary, devastated in 1241, holds in 1285. Why? Stone. But here's what makes the victory stunning. It's more than just fortresses holding out. There are Hungarian tactics too. When the Mongols besiege a fortress, nearby garrisons attack. They don't fight in the open. They hit supply lines, ambush detachments, force the Mongols to spread thinner. It's asymmetric warfare. Hungarians don't try to win in the field. They make territory impossible to hold. Every Mongol skirmish win is erased by fortresses still standing. And while fortresses stand, Mongols can't control Hungary. And then there's morale. In 1241, Mongol terror broke Hungarian resistance. In 1285, fortresses mean hope. Defenders know holding out means winning. Civilians know they have refuge. That psychological shift matters as much as the stone. Hungary in 1285 believes it wins, and belief becomes reality. When Nogai withdraws, the message is clear. Hungary is no longer conquerable. The Mongols can raid the edges but can't subdue it like 1241. Without conquest, the campaign fails. Bigger picture. The 1285 withdrawal ends Mongol expansion into Western Europe. After 1285, no major Mongol invasion threatens Central Europe. The terror from Vienna to Krakow is stopped. By Hungary. By fortresses that prove the Mongol war machine isn't invincible. What's the legacy of 1285? Why does it matter beyond Hungary? Because it proves a principle that defines medieval warfare for centuries. Well-designed fortifications beat even the best armies. After 1285, European kingdoms study the Hungarian model. Stone castles multiply. Military architects learn from Hungarian fortresses, thick walls, towers, siege planning. Defense in depth, fortress networks covering territory, becomes doctrine. And there's a deeper lesson. Adaptation beats raw power. Hungary in 1241 fights Mongol style, open battles, mobility, it loses. Hungary in 1285 changes the game. It refuses battles it can't win. Instead, it creates a battlefield where its strengths, fortifications, static defense, endurance, kill Mongol advantages. That's strategy. It's not being stronger. It's making opponent strengths irrelevant. The Mongols were faster, better in the open, expert at sieges. None of it mattered when every win was erased by a fortress still standing. Final irony. The Mongols, who mastered siege warfare in Asia, capturing Chinese and Persian cities, failed in Hungary not because fortresses were better, but because there were so many. One fortress falls eventually. 100? Impossible. Bela IV, staring at the ruins, made a bet. The Mongols return. Stone fortresses hold where timber failed. Hungary becomes expensive to conquer. The Mongols quit. 44 years later, the bet pays off. Hungary holds. The fortresses hold. The threat ends. This is how stone walls broke the Mongol war machine. How a devastated kingdom became an impregnable fortress. How strategy beat the dominant military power of an era. How one decision, built in stone, saved a kingdom and changed European history. If this fascinates you, subscribe. We explore the moments where strategy, technology, and courage changed civilizations. Comment. What was Hungary's key advantage? The fortresses, Bela's leadership, or the people's will to resist? See you next time.